The cookie visit Jake Turner lived alone on Station K9, a small human outpost on the edge of the known galaxy. It was cold, quiet, and peaceful, maybe too peaceful. His job was simple: maintain the station, repair broken systems, and report any strange signals to Earth Command. He'd been on the station for almost 3 months now, and nothing unusual had ever happened. No visitors, no aliens, not even a lost drone. It was the kind of place where boredom became your only friend. But everything changed one morning when Jake heard a knock at the airlock door. He paused, staring at the blinking light on the control panel. A knock, a real one. That wasn't possible. No one should be here, not for hundreds of light years. He pressed the monitor button and looked at the screen. Outside stood an old alien woman. She looked like a fragile grandmother, but with blue-green skin and long silver hair tied neatly behind her head. She wore a warm brown cloak and held a basket of cookies in her wrinkled hands. Jake blinked, rubbed his eyes, and looked again. She smiled and waved. He opened the comms line. Hello. Can I help you?" Her voice was soft and sweet. "Hello, dear. I just moved into the area. Thought I'd drop by and say hello. Brought you something sweet." Jake laughed. "You moved into the area?" "Ma'am, this is a classified human station. There are no neighborhoods here. How did you even get here?" She only smiled. "You humans are always in such a rush. Just accept a gift. No need for questions today." Jake felt something strange in his chest, a warmth, a pull, like her voice was a song he half remembered. Against all logic, he opened the inner door. She stepped in slowly, handing him the basket. "Try the almond swirl. They're my favorite." Jake took one and gave her a curious look. "Thank you, I guess. I'm Jake, by the way." She smiled again. "I know," before he could ask more. She turned and walked back toward the outer door. He blinked. "Wait, do you want tea?" But she was gone. No sound, no lights, no shuttle, just gone. Jake stood there for a moment, confused. He looked at the cookies, warm and fresh like they'd just come out of the oven. He sniffed one. It smelled like home. He took a bite. Suddenly, a sharp image hit his mind. A planet burning, people screaming in an alien language, stars collapsing in reverse. And silence. Jake dropped the cookie, his body shaking. He stumbled back, gasping for breath, and blacked out. When he woke up, an hour had passed. The cookies were still there, untouched except for the one he had bitten. He checked the station. Logs: no entry was recorded, no ships detected, no life forms scanned. According to the system, he had been alone the whole time, but he remembered her face, her smile, her voice. He picked up the basket and noticed something strange. Under the cloth, hidden beneath the cookies, was a small metal cube. It was smooth, silver, and pulsing with a faint blue light. It looked alive. Taped to the cube was a note, written in delicate, shaky handwriting. "Return what your kind stole, or all is lost." Jake stared at it, his mind racing. What did it mean? What had humanity stolen? And who was she? He placed the cube on his workbench and ran a few scans. The metal wasn't on the periodic table. The cube had no seams, no buttons, but somehow it was producing energy, massive amounts of it. More than the station's core. Jake leaned in closer. Suddenly the cube glowed brighter, and a voice whispered inside his head, "You've tasted memory. You've opened the door." Jake jumped back, knocking over tools. The voice wasn't from the comm system. It was in his mind, calm and ancient. He reached for his blaster, but the cube just sat there, pulsing quietly. He looked around, suddenly feeling watched. He checked the station's outer cams, and his blood froze. There she was again, the old alien woman, floating outside the station in the vacuum of space. No suit, no oxygen, just standing there, watching him, smiling. Jake whispered to himself, "This isn't real. This can't be real." But it was. He stared at the screen, her smile still gentle. But now it felt different, like she knew something he didn't. Like she had waited a long, long time for this moment. He turned back to the cube. It pulsed once more. and the note's message echoed in his head again. Return what your kind stole, or all is lost. Jake's hands trembled. The silence of the station felt heavier than ever before. Something had begun, and he was at the center of it. Jake didn't sleep that night, not even for a second. The cube sat on the workbench, glowing like a quiet heartbeat, soft and steady, like it was waiting for him to do something, or maybe remember something. He tried running tests again. The scanner gave him strange results, numbers that made no sense, materials that didn't exist, time readings that kept changing. One moment it said the cube was 3 hours old. The next it said it had existed for 5 billion years. Jake leaned back in his chair, staring at the cube. What are you? He whispered. The cube pulsed once, brighter than before, and then, without warning, Jake's mind was pulled into darkness. He wasn't in the station anymore. He was somewhere else, standing in a great hall made of black crystal, the sky above him was not a sky at all, but a sea of memory images, sounds, thoughts all flowing like rivers in the air. Around him stood tall figures, ancient and beautiful. Their eyes glowed with silver light. Their skin shimmered like stardust. One of them walked forward and spoke, not with words, but with emotion. And Jake understood every feeling. You came from the thieves, the figure said, but your soul is still clean. You must see what was broken. You must know the truth. Jake saw it all, a long time ago. Before Earth even had pyramids, human explorers reached the edge of the galaxy. They found a world peaceful and full of energy. The people there were gentle and wise. They had something called the heart core, a living source of power that kept their planet in balance. The humans took it, not for evil, not out of hate, but because they were afraid of dying in the cold of space. They believed stealing it was the only way to survive, but in doing so, they doomed the alien race. Without the heart core, their planet collapsed. Their sun darkened. Only a few of them survived, and those few went into hiding, waiting, watching, and one of them turned into a cookie-baking granny. Jake snapped back to the station, breathing hard. He stumbled backward, knocking over a tool tray. The cube was still on the table, quiet again, but now something had changed inside him. The memory was real. It wasn't a dream. It felt as if it belonged to him now. He looked down at his hand. It was shaking, but not from fear, from connection. Like something old was waking up inside him. Suddenly, the station lights flickered. Then they died. Jake cursed and rushed to the control panel. Emergency systems were down. The whole grid had failed. He switched on backup power. Nothing, not even a spark, and then he saw her again, outside the station window, floating in space. The alien granny hovered calmly, her cloak fluttering like it was caught in invisible wind. Her smile was gone now, replaced by a serious look. She raised one hand, and every light in the room blinked red at the same time. The station's emergency comm screen turned on by itself. Static filled the monitor. Then a message appeared, short and terrifying. She's not what she seems. Get away from her. Jake stared at the screen. Who sent this? Who knows about her? He asked out loud. The cube pulsed again. This time, Jake didn't resist. He placed both hands on it, and it lit up like a star. The voice returned, this time clearer. You carry the spark. You are chosen. You must return the core, or it will consume you too. He pulled his hands back, gasping. The cube wasn't just a message, it was a key, and now that he'd touched it fully, it had unlocked something inside his DNA. Memories, thoughts, language, all rushing into his mind. But they weren't human thoughts. They were alien, old, patient, filled with loss and sadness. Jake looked at the granny outside again, and for the first time, he didn't see a harmless visitor. He saw a survivor, maybe even a judge. The note came back to him. Return what your kind stole, or all is lost. He sat down slowly, thinking. If we stole their life, then what happens if we don't give it back? Suddenly, his comm panel lit up again. This time, it wasn't a message. It was a call. A man appeared on screen, old, with deep scars and tired eyes. He wore a faded Earth Command uniform. "Jake Turner?" He said, "If you're seeing the cube, then it's begun. I was part of the first mission. And we made a terrible mistake." Jake's eyes widened. "You know about her? You know what the cube is?" The man nodded slowly. "Yes, son, and if she's found you, then time is running out." It didn't feel like sleep, but Jake woke up anyway. He was lying on the cold metal floor of the station's main deck. The lights were flickering above him, humming softly like a lullaby from a distant place. His mind was foggy, his body aching like he'd been through a battle. But there were no wounds. No bruises, just memories. Memories that didn't belong to him. He sat up slowly, blinking at the soft blue light still pulsing from the cube on his desk. But now the glow was different. It wasn't just light anymore. It was showing images, holograms, floating gently in the air. A woman standing beside a giant tree of light. Children playing beneath two suns. A city floating over water. Then suddenly burning, crashing down, swallowed by a black wave. Jake touched one of the holograms, and the moment he did, it breathed, like it was alive. The scene shifted, and he heard voices speaking in a language he had never learned, but somehow understood. They called it the gift of memory. It was sacred, rare, dangerous. It could only be shared with those who carried a special thread in their DNA, a bridge between species, between past and future. And now, somehow, Jake had become that bridge. The cube had awakened something in him, something ancient, hidden inside his blood. He looked at his reflection in the dark screen nearby. His eyes seemed deeper, like they were holding more than just human thought now. Before he could question it, the cube flared again, and a voice filled the room, not the deep alien one from before, but soft kind. It was her voice, the old alien woman. "Now, you see, dear," she whispered, "you've inherited more than you know." Jake spun around, but she wasn't there. Just her voice, carried by the cube like a forgotten wind. "You're not being punished," she continued. "You're being trusted." He sat down, eyes fixed on the glowing cube. "Trusted with what?" "To return what was stolen," the voice said, "and to remember what was lost." The lights in the room dimmed. The cube projected another scene, this time from Earth. Jake saw early human explorers, not in spacesuits, but in strange golden armor, touching alien soil, shaking hands with tall glowing beings, laughing, sharing meals, writing music together. It wasn't war, it was friendship. But then something shifted. The humans grew afraid. The alien world had something powerful, a source of energy, emotion, and life itself. They called it the heart core, and they feared others would take it before them, so they took it first. Jake watched as the floating cities died, the oceans boiled, and the stars around that world dimmed. The last survivors sent a message across the galaxy, not for revenge, but for memory, to be remembered, to not be erased. Jake felt something wet on his cheek. He was crying, and he didn't even know why. The cube dimmed. The station went quiet again. For the first time, Jake felt the full weight of what the gift really was. It wasn't just information, it was a burden, a truth too. Heavy for most minds to carry, but now it was his. He stood up, shaking off the numbness in his legs, walked to the comm panel, and opened a private channel to Earth Command. The line buzzed, then connected. A tired officer appeared on the screen. "This is Station K9. What's your emergency?" she asked. Jake leaned close to the mic. "I need access to restricted expedition logs. Mission tag ECO-09, year 2171. The officer frowned. "That's classified above your level, sir. How did you even—" He cut her off. "I was visited by an alien. She gave me something, a cube. I think it's the memory core, or part of it." The officer stared at him in silence. Her eyes narrowed, and she whispered, "Hold please." The screen went black. Seconds passed, then minutes. Finally, it lit up again, but this time it wasn't the officer. It was a very old man, his face thin, his eyes full of guilt. "I was on Echo 09. The man said softly, "We didn't mean to take the core. We thought it was abandoned, but—" "We were wrong," Jake nodded. "Why didn't you return it?" "Because Earth became dependent on its energy," the man answered. "The world runs on it now, even if they don't know where it came from. But that gift came with a price, and now it's coming due." Jake looked at the cube again, glowing. Gently beside him, "She said I'm a bridge," he whispered. "What does that mean?" The old man looked at him, his voice shaking. "It means you're not just human anymore." Asterisk before the lie, Jake believed in the mission. Before the cube, he trusted Earth Command, the station, the system, everything now. He only trusted silence. He stood alone in the center of Station K9, watching as the stars outside blinked slowly, calmly, like nothing had changed. But inside Jake's mind, everything was falling apart. The old man's voice still echoed in his head. "You're not just human anymore." Jake hadn't replied. He had simply ended the call, not out of anger, but fear, deep fear. Because something about that sentence felt true, and he wasn't ready to admit it. He turned to the cube again. Its light was dim now, like it was resting. But the memories it had shown him still burned like fire in his brain. So much had been hidden, so much twisted. Earth's clean image of heroic explorers, peaceful missions, and proud first contact. It was a story, a cover. Something had been stolen, and the truth buried under metals and silence. Jake opened the archive system of the station. He hacked through the admin locks, layer by layer, until he found the hidden files marked, "Do not a CCESS Class Omega." He clicked anyway. Videos, logs, mission recordings. All from the original Echo 09 mission. The first humans to reach that far-off alien world. Jake clicked play on the first video. What he saw shook him. A group of soldiers, not scientists, walking through a glowing forest, not exploring, but scanning for energy. One of them said, "We found it." "Looks like the core the brief mentioned," another replied. "HQ said secure an extract." Whether they like it or not, Jake clenched his fists. Their voices were calm, professional, like they were removing a battery, not ripping the heart out of a civilization. The video ended with the sound of alarms, the alien sky turning dark, and one sentence spoken by the alien leader in perfect English: "You will forget us, but we will not forget you." Jake leaned back, breathing hard. "So this is the lie we live under," he muttered, suddenly. The station's lights blinked red, not from power loss but from external signal interference. A ship was nearby. He opened the camera feed, expecting some Earth Command drone. But what he saw made his heart stop. Floating just beyond the station, hidden within the shadow of a nearby moon, was a ship not human. Its design was elegant, flowing like it had been carved from light itself. And standing on the outer hull, staring directly at the station, was her, the alien woman, the memory keeper. Jake whispered, "You never left." The cube pulsed, and her voice filled the room again, not angry, not warm, but heavy, like the weight of time itself. "You've seen the lie, now you must face it." Jake spoke out loud, hoping she could hear him. "Why show me this? What do you want from me?" The room grew colder, not physically but emotionally, like truth had taken the warmth away. "We offered your kind wisdom," she said. "You took power instead." Jake clenched his jaw. "That wasn't me. That wasn't all of us." The cube lit up, and this time, instead of memories, it projected a live view Earth, shining in the distance, bright and blue. "The hardcore powers your world now," she said. "It feeds your lights, your ships, your satellites, your world. Has forgotten the cost." Jake stared at Earth, so beautiful and fragile. "If we give it back, our civilization could fall." The alien woman stepped closer to her ship's window, her eyes full of emotion. "And if you don't, ours will never rise again." The screen blinked, and a new face appeared, a high-ranking Earth official. His expression was cold, firm. He had received the data Jake accessed. And he wasn't pleased. "Engineer Turner," the man said, "you are hereby ordered to shut down all unauthorized transmissions, contain the alien object, and prepare for extraction. We're sending a retrieval team." Jake didn't answer. He looked at the cube, then at the woman outside, then back. At Earth, he realized something terrifying. The cube wasn't just a message. It was a test, and he had just passed it. The cube lit up brighter than ever before, and Jake felt it again, that rush of knowledge, that connection. His body trembled, not from fear, but awakening. Something inside him was changing, something deep, woven into his DNA, the bridge they spoke of. The gift wasn't just memory, it was evolution. Jake stepped back from the screen and whispered to himself, "They lied to us," but now the truth was awake. He didn't feel human anymore. Jake stood in the center of his dark station, staring at his hands, watching as tiny blue lines glowed beneath his skin like veins of starlight. They pulsed softly, in sync with the cube on his desk, as if something inside him had finally come online. He should have been afraid, but he wasn't. It felt right. Outside, the alien ship still hovered in silence, and she, the memory keeper, stood calmly on its edge, not saying a word, just watching. But she didn't need to speak anymore, because Jake could hear her thoughts, not in words, not in sound, but in images, emotions, fragments of meaning. She was waiting for him. But not just here, everywhere. Across the stars, others like her were watching too. The awakening had begun, and Jake was the first, but not the last he turned to. The cube, it hovered slightly now, no longer needing a table, spinning slowly in the air. A soft hum filled the station. Not mechanical, but organic, like breathing, like thought. Jake took a breath, then reached out and touched the cube again. This time, it didn't show memories, it showed possibilities. 100 futures, some full of war, burning planets, collapsing civilizations, others full of peace. Humans and aliens building together, growing something new from something broken. But all those paths, every one of them started with him. His voice shook. "What? What do I do now?" The cube responded with a whisper in his mind. Not a command, not a threat, just a truth. "You choose." Suddenly, the station trembled, not from attack but activation. Systems that had never existed before powered on, hidden. Panels opened in the walls, revealing alien tech fused with human metal. Jake's blood wasn't the only thing that had changed. The station itself had evolved. The cube had unlocked it, revealing what Earth Command had secretly embedded long ago. This wasn't just a research station. It was a relay, a beacon, meant to receive the core and transmit something far greater. He rushed to the new console. Symbols glowing, some human, some alien, all strangely readable now. He placed his hand on the scanner, and the system accepted him without hesitation. The screen lit up with a warning. "Genetic key confirmed. Relay online." Jake gasped. "You planned this?" And from the cube, another message appeared. "Not your kind, ours." He stepped back, everything racing in his mind. "You built this station? You placed the cube here?" The memory keeper's voice entered his mind again. "We waited for the right one. One who carried both light and shadow, blood and choice." Jake clenched his fists. "But why me?" A pause, then the answer. "Because you asked the question." Truth hit him like a wave. He wasn't chosen because he was special. He was chosen because he cared. He questioned, he doubted, he felt. And in a galaxy where most minds chased control, Jake had reached for understanding. And now he was being given power, real power. The cube began to merge with the console. Its light spread across the station like veins of blue fire. The ship outside responded too, its engines glowing brighter, shifting position, and from the darkness of space, more lights began to appear. Dozens, then hundreds, ships, alien, old, forgotten but waking. Jake opened the comm line again, connecting to Earth Command. This time, no code, no delay, no permission. "This is Jake Turner of Station K9, he said, voice firm. You've lied for centuries. You've hidden the truth. But I won't be part of it anymore." The commander on the other end was silent for a moment, then spoke coldly. "Turner, step away from the console. We're locking your controls and dispatching a retrieval team." Jake didn't flinch. "You're too late," he said. "Station isn't yours anymore." He cut the feed the moment he did. The stars outside began to shift. The alien ships formed a circle around the planet below, a silent warning. A message across space. Jake stood in the heart of the relay station. The pulse of the cube now inside his chest. The awakening wasn't just his. It had begun everywhere, and Earth would have to listen now. Asterisk across the sky. Alien ships drifted like ancient gods returning home, silent and watchful. Each one a reminder of something humanity had buried. Each one a witness to what had been stolen from his place on Station K9. Jake stood between two worlds, and the galaxy was waiting for his answer. The console before him glowed softly, the cube now fully merged into its core. A pulsing blue light spread across every surface, alive and listening inside Jake's chest. That same light burned in sync with the station, with the memory keeper, and with every ship above. The comms buzzed again. "Earth Command." He didn't answer, not yet, because the real voice he was waiting for was hers. She appeared again, not through screens or speakers, but through the air itself, her presence blooming like wind through the walls. Not the kind old alien woman now. She stood tall, radiant, her body flowing like living light, her eyes holding the weight of 1,000 suns. She had taken her true form. Jake could barely speak. "You're not just a memory keeper." Her voice echoed inside his mind and through the station. "I am the last voice of a fallen world. I am the guardian of what remains." Jake took a deep breath. "You said I had to return what was stolen, but if I do, Earth could collapse, billions could die." She nodded slowly. "And if you don't, we will remain extinct, forgotten by the stars, erased from the story." Jake looked out the window, watching the circle of alien ships tighten their formation. Each one was charged with quiet power, enough to end planets, but none of them had fired. They were still waiting for his choice behind him. Earth Command's voice cracked through the come again, now louder, more desperate. "Turner, this is High Command. You are not authorized to communicate with non-human entities. You will shut down the station and surrender the artifact immediately." Jake walked up to the mic, pressed the button, and calmly replied, "No." A pause. Then shouting, threats, military action codes, none of it mattered anymore. He turned to the memory keeper. "What if there's a third way?" She tilted her head. "Speak." Jake's eyes lit up with determination. "What if I return the core, not as surrender, but as partnership? What if humanity doesn't give it back in guilt, but offers something greater in return?" She stared at him silently, not with anger or hope, but with something deeper, curiosity. He stepped forward, his voice strong now. "I've seen your memories. I've seen what the core was meant to be, not just power, but balance, harmony. A living bond between worlds." He pointed to the cube inside the console. "What if we rebuild it together? Not just for your people, not just for mine, but for something new?" The memory keeper stepped closer, her presence warming the station. "That would require trust and sacrifice." Jake nodded. "Then I'll go first." He placed his hands on the console again and let the cube drain him fully, the light inside. His chest dimmed as the cube absorbed the knowledge he carried, the energy that made him the bridge. He winced, pain flashing through his body, but he didn't let go. The cube pulsed once, then twice, and then it changed. A second light appeared beside it, golden, not blue. It rose into the air, hovered for a moment, then flew out of the station, carried by energy alone. The memory keeper followed it with her eyes. "You gave it form," she whispered. "You gave it hope." Suddenly, the alien ships shifted formation. The ring they had formed now opened like an invitation, like the beginning of something instead of the end. The Earth fell silent. All across the planet, satellites blinked, power grids fluctuated, and people looked up at the sky, wondering what was coming. Jake stood at the heart of it all. Body weak, but spirit stronger than ever. The memory keeper turned to him, her voice softer now. "You have changed the story," he smiled faintly. "Then let's write the next part together." The galaxy held its breath. From the edge of the solar system to the heart of Earth's cities, across orbiting stations and forgotten moons, the light from Station K9 burst outward like a second sun. A ripple of golden blue energy spread across space, slow and silent, but unstoppable. And at the center of that light stood one man, Jake Turner, exhausted, changed, glowing from within. He had returned what was stolen, but not with fear, not with shame. He gave it back with a challenge. Let's build something better. The alien fleet, once ready for war, now hovered peacefully, receiving the signal like an ancient song they hadn't heard in millennia. And for the first time in 1,000 years, their silence ended. Ships that had drifted for ages lit up, sending signals back, not just to each other, but to Earth, in every language, every frequency, every symbol. One message repeated: "We are ready to begin again." On Earth, chaos turned into awe. Governments scrambled to rewrite emergency plans. Leaders froze on live broadcasts, and ordinary people, they looked up, not with terror, but wonder. In the skies above them, something impossible had happened, and the center of it all was not a general, not a scientist, not a politician, just a station engineer with a toolbox, a heart, and a conscience. Jake watched the alien lights dance across the black sky, tears in his eyes, not from pain but relief. He had been a messenger, a bridge, but now he was something more. Behind him, the memory keeper appeared again, still glowing, still powerful, but softer now. She no longer floated above him like a god. She stood beside him like an equal. "You changed the end," she said. "You gave it a new shape." Jake chuckled weakly. "I didn't even have a plan, I just listened." She smiled. "Sometimes that is the rarest wisdom." Suddenly, the cube at the center of the station cracked open, but instead of breaking, it bloomed like a flower of light, opening its petals to reveal a small crystal core spinning, singing, alive. It hovered in the air, waiting. Jake looked to the memory keeper. "What is it?" "A seed," she said. "Not a weapon, not a tool, but a beginning." Jake reached out slowly and touched the core. It didn't burn. It didn't shock him. Instead, it showed him visions of cities among the stars, of alien and human children learning together, of new technologies not built to conquer, but to connect. This was the real gift, not just power, but possibility. He turned toward the main camera and activated the broadcast. Earth was listening. The galaxy was listening. Jake cleared his throat and spoke. "This is Jake Turner, speaking from Station K9. A few days ago, I thought I was just an engineer, with nothing special to offer. But I saw something. I learned something. We weren't the first to touch the stars. We weren't the first to love, to dream, or to lose. But today, we get to be the first to say we're sorry and we're ready." He held up the crystal seed. "This is not a surrender. It's a handshake. It's a chance to stop being afraid of each other. Humanity made a mistake, but now humanity gets to fix it. Not by hiding, not by fighting, but by standing tall and saying we are better than we were." He paused, then smiled as he said the words that would echo across history. "Humanity, yeah, across Earth." Millions of people cheered, not because they had won a war, but because, for once, they had chosen peace without being forced. The alien ship shifted again, forming a massive symbol in the stars, a shared sign, part human, part alien, something new, something whole, and the seed. It planted itself in orbit. Over time it would grow, becoming the first interspecies hub, a station built by many hands for all voices, a living archive, a future school, a sanctuary for memory, for healing, for building. Jake never returned to Earth. He stayed on the edge of space, helping the first children from both species build the foundation of a future they would never be forced to forget. But stories of him spread. The engineer who listened, the bridge between worlds, the man who made the galaxy breathe again, and on quiet nights when ships pass Station K9, pilots swear they still see a light glowing on the deck, and sometimes they hear a soft, warm voice saying, "Next time, I'll bring milk too."